You're a Harry. I'm a what? Alright, fuck doing a whole long scripted intro. I'm here. I'm ranking the 8 Harry Potter movies. Probably my second favorite franchise, right behind Star Wars. This probably has a better track record than Star Wars, honestly. But let's not waste no time. Let's jump into it. With coming in 8th place is The Chamber of Secrets. Now, even though it's in last place, doesn't mean I have anything against it or I dislike it. It's actually like all of these movies, honestly. But this one does kind of drag on the longest. However, it does still have a few memorable moments. For instance, the finale against the giant snake that surprisingly still holds up CGI-wise. But other than that, this isn't the go-to for me when it comes to Harry Potter. 7 out of 10. And coming in 7th place will be the Philosopher slash Sorcerer of Stone, which to me just slightly notches over the Chamber of Secrets due to it being the first movie, which kind of gives it that nostalgic, whimsical kind of feeling when you watch it, with it being the one that establishes all of the main characters as well as the world itself. And that's pretty much what my favorite part of this movie really is just the initial introduction to all the nerdy shit that comes with Harry Potter, whether you like it or hate it. And without a doubt, this is definitely probably the most childish of all the movies, which kind of gives it a slight notch down from the others, but still very enjoyable to me. This one also gets a 7 out of 10. And in 6th place is The Order of the Phoenix, which actually used to be my least favorite until more recently, because I didn't remember the third act of the movie being so damn good, but last time I watched it I really enjoyed it, so I was able to grab a spot over the first two movies. And this was when they first started really diving into the awkwardness of teenage dating, which made for some good comedic moments. All in all, just a solid watch. This one also gets a 7 out of 10. Coming up in the middle of the pack is Deathly Hallows Part 1, being pretty much the first one to try out the whole Part 1, Part 2 little fiasco that went on in the 2010s, and honestly it's the only one that did it right, I think. Using this film as more of a filler episode to really build up to the big finale for Part 2 to end off the franchise. And probably my favorite aspect about this movie is the on-the-run type drama where our three main characters are pretty much just always looking over the shoulder, trying not to get caught, and using a whole lot of different tricks and obviously magic to erase their tracks from being found. And overall, I will give this one a 7.5 out of 10. And in 4th place is the HalfBlood Prince. This one was similar to Order of the Phoenix because it dove a lot into the teenage aspects and life as a teenager, and to me this one is probably honestly the funniest of all the movies because last time I watched it I was surprised of how many jokes actually landed for me. And my favorite part of this movie is probably when Harry ends up taking a love potion, and I just found that entire subplot to be fucking hilarious to me. Yeah, overall, this one gets a 7.5 out of 10. And coming in 3rd place, The Goblet of Fire. This one is just a fantastic premise with the Tri-Wizard Tournament practically being a magic version of the Olympics. And this gimmick really does work because it sets up for some fantastic action scenes and suspenseful scenes as well, with this movie being the first actual on-screen presence from Lord Voldemort making his debut, which I'm probably gonna have to say is my pick for my favorite part about this movie is when Voldemort actually, I guess you could say, resurrects or is reborn. Yeah, and there's really no dull moment in this movie, and I'm gonna have to give this one a 8 out of 10. Now coming in 2nd place is also a second in a two-parter, that is the Deathly Hallows Part 2. And like I said earlier, Deathly Hallows Part 1 was really all just a big filler to set up for Part 2, and by the time you get to Part 2, it's really just the entire time feels like one great big finale and third act all together. It really lives up to the decade-long span that was worked up for. And for me, a movie always gets extra props when it finishes off something damn near perfectly instead of fumbling it like with some other franchises. Overall fantastic, 8 out of 10. And in my number one spot goes to The Prisoner of Azkaban. This one gets such high praise because it's so drastically different from the very first two movies, being the first one to really set the tone from very childish and fun-loving and colorful to a very bleak tone. And the second you see the Dementors looking like the Grim Reaper, you really know this ain't a kid's movie. Even the acting seems far superior from the previous two movies. There is a time travel element to this movie, and usually when you think of time travel, it tends to fuck a lot of things up, and it kind of does if you think about it when you're watching the other movies afterwards, but if you don't think about it while you're watching this movie, it's a fantastic element, and it's used very interestingly in the movie, and it's not used too overbearingly to where it overstays its welcome. It's just the right amount. And I would say my favorite part of the movie is probably the first time that the Dementors are on screen and they stop the train and pretty much suck the soul out of Harry Potter, which sounds kind of rapey, but you know. Anyway, I love it, and it's probably the one I typically think of when I think of Harry Potter, and overall this one also gets a 8 out of 10.
1,000, take one.
Was that 1,000? Hey! Do I smell champagne? I rate.